Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are, and welcome to the webinar. My name is Gary Allen. I'll be your host today. Our subject is about future casting artificial intelligence. So what's next for your law firm? This is part of our Best in Class Law Firm series that we put on for the Association of Legal Administrators. The content is appropriate both for attorneys, managing partners, and legal administrators, among others. But we do like to give ALA, the Association of Legal Administrators, a little plug here. We love this organization. We're deeply involved with it. And if you are an ALA member, we do offer credits for CLM for this webinar. If you're not, please, and you'd like to know more about ALA, please raise your hand in the chat and we'll put you in touch with an appropriate chapter. So just as we get started, let me tell you a little bit about my story. I was a 35-year practicing attorney in a mid-sized firm. I retired at the beginning of last year. And through my practice, I experienced some real pain, especially early in my practice, from bad business practices. I actually was part of 2 firms that imploded in the first 4 to 6 years of my practice. And then I was really fortunate to land with an exceptional firm that was profitable and well run, and that not only made me a lot more money over the course of my career, it made me much happier. And so I've developed a real passion to help make law firms into better businesses. And I hope that comes through in what we talk about today. Along the way, I founded Lean Law, which is a legal billing software company. We're really excited to have with us Brian Kennel with Perform Law today. He is the founder and CEO of Perform Law, which is a legal management consultancy based in New Orleans. And he has many years of law management experience, including all those really tough problems you have to deal with in your law firm: succession planning, leadership development, and enhancing organizational efficiency for law firms. And so he's just one of those essential people when you've got something important and complicated to navigate in your firm, such as retirement, exit of founding partners, or some long-term strategic planning. Welcome, Brian.
Hey, good morning. How are you? Good morning, depending on where you are. It's kind of midday here, but how are you? Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on, and we look forward to hearing from you more in just a couple of minutes.
Sure.
Allison, we did have someone raise their hand. Maybe we could have, if there's something we need to take on right now in the chat, we can do that. But I'm going to move on with just the introduction to the program. So our objectives today are simple. You're going to understand the future uses of AI, artificial intelligence, in your law firm, but it's in the context of a successful business strategy. I really like the way Brian outlined the program, so we can have some of that important context around the use of AI. And the reason I say this is my passion for making law firms better businesses. There's actually, by my calculation, an $8 million difference between best-in-class financial performance for a small to mid-size law firm and an average performance. And the $8 million is for a lawyer over the course of their career. And this comes down to 3 things in a law firm. Brian's going to talk about these in slightly different terms, but I think we're on the same page as to how this works. Efficient processes, very important part of your how your law firm works. And this is about mapping the workflows, understanding how you want to work in your firm, building on industry standards, especially for small to mid-sized firms, which means Microsoft 365 for production, probably QuickBooks Online for accounting, adding legal customization so that those work well for law firms, and then communicating those processes within the firm so they're uniformly used. The second part of it is about productive people, about creating a culture where people are accountable and also, excited and entrepreneurial about their work, about creating a compensation system that creates the right accountability and the right forgetting the word here, but the right incentives for them. And then finally, succession, because who wants to work for a firm that where it's going to close when the founder retires? Then finally, it's about creating a strong product market fit. And we talk about product here, but lawyers often think of it in terms of services. I think what that really comes down to is listening to your clients, understanding what they really need, creating the right offering and pricing, which has gotten more complicated as we've moved away from pure billable hours, and then marketing in an appropriate way for your practice, whether you're a B2B or B2C law firm. So that's, sort of the way I look at law firm performance in a nutshell. You're going to hear much more about that from Brian. So we'll talk about that and bring Brian on in 1 second, but I just want to let you know that we have a whole series of webinars that talk about these issues. So we call it the Best in Class Law Firm series. We put on 8 of them through the second half of 2024. We liked it so much, we're going to put on 24 additional webinars for 2025. This is the first one of the year. So keep your eyes out for these, and that's all built around creating that best-in-class financial performance so you could potentially triple the performance of your law firm. With that, and then finally, we are going to offer you a law firm report card to talk about how your firm is performing relative to industry benchmarks. That'll be sent to you after the webinar. Can be a good start to getting into the financial performance of your firm. So now let me turn it over to Brian for future casting AI and what's next for your law firm.
All
And
right.
I'm going to stop sharing and allow Brian to take over the screen.
So just sort of a check. Can everybody hear me? Everybody see me? You don't really need to see
Yep.
me. You just need to see the slide presentation.
I
So
hear you. Yes.
Good. Good. And you seeing everything okay?
Yes. It looks like, do you need to go into presentation mode on your
You know
slides?
what? I think what it is, I am in presentation mode, but I think what it is because of the dual monitors, it's swapping me out. So let's do this. Let's go to one monitor, and that'll make it easier. And tell me what you see when I do this. I don't want the tech to be a problem here.
Yeah, this still looks like I don't see the presentation mode yet.
It just wants, so that is presentation mode. It wants to give me this little sidebar for the next slide. I guess, is that distracting? I can
No,
shrink it.
I think it's fine. It shows your notes and a few things and the other slides.
Yeah, which are fine because I do want to share those notes. So this way people can kind of screenshot those if they want.
Take it away.
All right. So, at some point, maybe AI will just do all of this and, won't have to have any competence at all. But for now, I got to be good at this. So, the ethos of this presentation and kind of where this got started was I was asked to come speak to, one of these national council meetings for a major insurer. And they were trying to figure out, in 6 months ago, they were trying to figure out what is this new thing called AI and how is it going to impact us. And if you've been kind of going through it the way that I've been going through it, it seems like a month is a year. in terms of progress. So and things you have to think about. So I want to share some bigger picture things with you today. And what we're also going to talk about is what can you do foundationally in your law firm, just so that you're prepared for whatever it winds up being. Okay. So the first thing I like to do is recommend a couple of good books. If you're like me and reading the book from cover to cover is like a lifelong endeavor. These two are actually pretty easy to read, and um, Blue Ocean Strategy is simply a book about strategic planning, and it makes a lot of sense to me because Blue Ocean is the red ocean is what most law firms exist in today, meaning it's highly competitive, price competitive, all of those things. And Blue Ocean is when for example, invent the iPhone and suddenly you've redefined what this whole thing is. So great book. I would really encourage you reading it, and think again, more than anything else, for those of you who haven't read it or know anything about it, it's a great change management book. It's a great book to sort of prepare you for rapidly changing environments and things like that. So these would just be two foundational books that I would recommend anybody who's interested. So what are we going to talk about today? So we're kind of doing a little brief intro here. We're going to touch on the key building blocks for a successful law firm. We're going to do some financial models, discuss that, some a generative AI influenced model. We're going to get ready for generative AI, such as it is. Um, Tech stacks and tools, we'll touch on that. Some workforce adjustments that are likely, some operating model adjustments that
Good.
are likely. Let's talk a little bit about the key elements of a successful law firm. So Gary alluded to this a little bit earlier, but when you really stop and think about what you're trying to do, is you're trying to build something that creates more of an institution, but not so much a bureaucracy as much as something that is more than, for example, a managing partner or some folks with books of businesses. So to be able to do that, you need branded marketing. Okay, so you need branded marketing for a couple reasons. One, you need branded marketing so that increasingly your online presence and the way clients think about you and interact with you and think about your firm needs to be more about a brand rather than an individual person. You need also need that for recruiting. Okay, so you know so much of business development now really has nothing to do with getting new clients. It has to do with getting the right lawyers to come to work for you. So branded marketing is a huge value in recruiting. You need to optimize your operations. I mean, just generally speaking, you need to be efficient anyway, but as these models evolve, over the next, 3 to 5 years, let's say, the efficiencies that you're going to have to get from your operations are going to be way more significant than simply just working more hours and passing the inefficiency along to your clients. Now, that's not anything particularly new. I mean, in certain aspects of bill review and things like that, the clients have been pushing on this for a long time. But you need to be more efficient. So you just have to, again, these are building blocks. Workforce development. When you really stop and think about that, never more, I think, even though people are saying, well, AI is going to do this and AI is going to do that and AI is going to do this. I do think AI is going to make a lot of routine tasks, um, you know, not as important, but it is going to put a lot of pressure on that upper 20 or 30% to really have to perform now. Because, as I say, you get to average a lot faster with AI, but then going above average or to excellence takes a lot of development and a lot of training. So there will be a lot of training and just having people rethink about things and think about things in a different way and in the approach to work and what's worth doing and what's not, you know the financial management system obviously needs to be, top notch. No question about that. And those are, it's interesting that we're on a lien law kind of a thing because I feel like I'm about to tell them about their own business right now. But I think Gary would probably agree that over the next several years, there's going to be a shakeout in this space. And some of these systems are going to get it, and some of these systems are going to hang on for dear life to their installed base, and they'll just erode eventually. But not all these companies are going to be standing when this is over with. Okay, so we are going to see real time, real change in financial management systems and law firms, and I think that now more than ever, I mean, we're seeing it all day long. So that's
Right.
coming. And then real time analytics. It's nice. The dashboards, all those things are really nice. And we work with clients, and they'll have great dashboards and everything else. And I'm like, well, what do they say? Do you use them? And they go, well, the data really isn't right, and they look good though, but they don't really get to use them. So the analytics have to get a whole lot better, and they will, and they will. Um, so those are the key elements that you just need to remember. You have good marketing, good recruiting. Your operations have to work right. You have to have a good workforce and an approach to your workforce that encourages them to be excellent. You need a good financial management system, and you need numbers and real time analytics to figure out how you're doing. So let's talk a little bit about branded marketing and why it's important. Branded marketing seeks to make a firm's marketing intellectual property, and this is difficult in a lot of law firms because a lot of law firms are personality driven. So you've got the real strong business developers, and they sort of make all the rules, and so there's this sort of, and they frequently complain, well, I'm the only one developing business and nobody else is developing business. And now you come up with a solution, and it kind of threatens their dominance a little bit. And so it's just sort of this thing. But if you can get to a place where 20, 30, 40% of your work is either assisted by or coming in through, say, a marketing automation system,
Mm.
with some marketing automation system software is in bullet point 2, you're really doing something special, because now you have something that has intrinsic value in and of itself. And now you have something that if I join your firm, I have that much better of an opportunity to grow my business, because you got your act together, when it comes to marketing. And you need some key in-house roles, which we'll talk about later. There are some key positions in a marketing system that are pretty important. And then real-time reporting. Again, you need real-time analytics to see if all the money you're spending on marketing is working.
Mm.
All
Boy,
right.
we could spend an hour on that one for sure.
Yeah, yeah, you really could. I mean, but these are all foundational. So if you start
Exactly.
going in this direction, you're going to be better prepared for whatever's coming down the line.
Hmm.
So optimized operations. I think what you're going to see like this, and this is going to kind of get into what we'll talk about in the tail end as far as how billing's going to change. I think you're going to see a shift in not so much just working on a case or in a case and doing some stuff and putting in some hours, to a more task or deliverable oriented approach. Like, what did you accomplish? Well, I'm not really interested in how you got there as much as what's the deliverable, what did you accomplish? And so I think we're seeing it that to an extent project management fundamentals um, have to start to make their way into law firms in a much more prevalent way than they are now. So that's where sort of project and case management software comes in. But the project and case management software that's on the market today, while it's better than none, it isn't. They're not really project management backbones when you think of, like, breaking a project or a case down into task lists, and allowing time and assigning responsibilities and having milestones and different things like that. They're not really designed around that. They're mostly designed around, depending on which one you get, of just sort of keeping the chaos a little more organized. You have just better visibility into the chaos, right? So and then I'm not saying they're not good. Certainly I think it's better to have one than not have one, but how you get there is different. But I do think task and deliverable oriented
But
thinking is going to get in here. And
seems like there are some really unique challenges with, especially with litigation. I mean, I talk about litigation, having done a fair amount of it. as you're trying to build a house and your opponent is trying to tear it down at the same time.
Yeah.
So how do you project manage something like that? I think that's
Well, yeah. And at the same time, though, if you think, it depends on the kind of work you do too. The more
hmm
specialized work you do, the more difficult it is. If you're but if you're, you know, if you're doing a certain type of case and you're doing thousands of those cases a month or a year,
right,
you can create project plans and you can create best
right,
practices and you can create an algorithm that says this case is going to fall between this and this 95%, so you can use more of a statistical approach to it. And
mm,
what the benefit of this does is you can take unskilled, untrained attorney right out of school, and their time to profitability can be a lot quicker because you at least have a recipe book that they can follow
right.
for a lot of it. And then experience and wisdom and other things come in, but your leverage would be better. So you're going to need, and then you'll need some key in-house roles. You're going to need people who think more in these terms. So maybe some kind of software administrator, or ops analyst, or something like that. You're going to start to see make it. Some of the larger firms you may notice, have project managers on staff, and they're sort of starting to feel around this and try to figure this out. But I think it's going to get faster and it's going to get more prevalent in law firms, and I think it's going to be, really important. And then again, this you're going to see this theme all the way through. You just need real time metrics to see if any of the stuff you're doing is actually working and providing a benefit and how you make it better. All right, workforce development. So, what do we got to do with our workforce? If the machines are going to do everything, for us, what do we got to do? Well, we got to accelerate minimum viable productivity. So it's a new word, minimum viable product in the software space, but this is minimum viable productivity. What is how can I
Mm,
get you from not productive to a level where you're at least, say, covering your salary and benefits in the quickest time possible? Because I'm under a lot of time pressure. I've got cash flow pressures because I'm having to make so many investments in so many things in the next 5 years. I really need to get people, and I talk about this like the enterprise rent a car model, where you go through a week's training and then you're on the desk, and in 3 months you're a manager. You know what I mean? And you're actually minimally, you're actually able to function in their system and make a profit for the company in a really short period of time. And, law firms need to figure this out. It's a little bit harder, but with the right tools, you can make people minimally productive if
mm,
they're assisted by some tools. And if you have good training and evaluation systems, and then, those are key now, those will be key in the future. How are you even gonna evaluate your people on what metrics are you going to use, and do the incentives that we have in place now, for example, a simple like billable hours bonus or something like that, does that even make sense in the world we're getting ready to go into? Or should those metrics be more focused on, you know I don't know how many depositions you took this month, or how many whatever, whatever the widget is, we're going to measure how much did you get done, as opposed to, how much time did you spend doing it. Key in-house roles, again, you're just going to need different type of people, maybe operations managers, things like that, things that for a company, an operating company, Delta Airlines, something like that, these are all pretty obvious things, but law firms haven't had to embrace them because they've largely been time and materials, just,
yeah.
we don't have much material, but we're going to bill you by the hour, and if we're inefficient, you might complain about that. You might try to police this through an hourly rate or a bill review system,
Mm,
but we're still going to bill you that way. So, all right, what's the financial management system need to do? Um, it really needs to refocus. I mean, bookkeeping will always be bookkeeping when you stop and think about it. Your income statement, your balance sheet, cash flow statement, those are like foundational, and they're going to be foundational going forward. Now, how they get prepared, and who manages the data, and do you need trained bookkeepers to do that, and CPAs and all this other stuff, that remains to be seen. I still think you're going to need financial acumen to run these systems, but a lot of the
Right.
transactions, are going to be categorized automatically, using AI. But the financial management system in this context needs to refocus on being something that can sort of indicate marginal profitability quicker, and so it needs to be more of a tool rather than like how did we do. It needs to support how are we going to do. If you stop and think of an income statement, it's a statement on what's already happened. Okay, so we need to be more predictive and even prescriptive. So your financial management system is going to have to evolve to that. And so
Yeah.
you
I
may
mean,
need, go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, law firms are so far from this for the most part. I mean,
Yeah.
most of our customers are really just focused on getting the bills out and getting them paid. And, anything beyond that, even the simplest financial metrics are, it's like, can't even think about that. How do we get to the next level?
Well, it's a good question, and it is frustrating too because it's like you have this. I always feel like sometimes I've got this vineyard out there and I've got the best wine, and I give it to these people and they go, it's not. It's too sweet, or it's too. It's like, wait, you
Yeah.
don't fundamentally appreciate how hard this was. So for most financial management people in law firms, they feel this frustration, and I'm right there with them because most lawyers, how much cash do we have in the bank, and can we make a distribution? And that's kind of how they decide whether it's healthy or not, right?
Right.
And so I think they're gonna be forced into it, which is why I think it's gonna happen. They're gonna be forced into, like, for example, Gary, pricing decisions where it's
Hmm.
not just going to be, well, we charge $275 an hour, and this is our schedule rates, and fine, and that's all that goes into it, right? It's just, well, this is what we charge per hour. To what will you do, what will you do this group of cases for, or what will you do this, so there's more of a fixed fee approach to it, an alternative fee
Hmm.
approach to it, or a time, more of a task oriented. And so their whole way of thinking about um, profitability is going to have to change because they just can't say, well, as long as we're charging 275 an hour, we're going to make money. So it's going to need to be much more, like a good cost allocation system, for example, right?
Hmm.
you know is going to be
Hmm.
absolutely critical in these things, an overhead allocation system, because you know you're going to be much more focused on marginal profitability or incremental profitability rather than how many hours you're working. How much can somebody get done in the allotted time period? Because we get paid, for example, we get paid for all the stuff that's done within the allotted time period, not for how long we spend on it, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
so you're going to need different data, and I got into that a little bit. You're going to need better cost data, just better cost capture. And then, when you stop and think about it, you're going to start to need a way to calculate what's the widget we're going to, what's the unit we're going to bill on, and how are we going to handle that? None of these systems are set up for that right now.
Hmm.
So again, we're not talking necessarily about today. We're talking about, this is more of a forward-looking kind of a presentation of so I don't want to lose, like, I don't want people
Yeah.
to lose context
Yeah. I
here.
mean, I just wanted to give you a little hallelujah for what you said about real-time reporting, because that's something that we work really hard on at Lean Law. I mean, we haven't perfected it by any stretch, but that's definitely where we need to go uh,
Yeah.
to to get actionable data that people can use.
Well,
Um,
and in that sense, think of it this way: like the average law firm, in my experience, is, if it's January, they're probably looking at November data right now. They're looking at, and then maybe a short projection on what December looked like. They might have hours for December and something, but they haven't closed the year yet, right? So there's this real lag. So there's never a proactive approach on that. It's always kind of a look back, and then when the corrections come, they come 2, 3, 4 months after the
mhm.
event. So real-time reporting is almost like, when you stop and really think about it, hey, we're losing money today. Let's figure that out now, so we don't lose money tomorrow. Okay. They're so far from that they look at this in terms of years almost. So this
Right.
whole thing is going and should accelerate when you really stop and think about it. So, for example, if you had a workflow management system and somebody didn't have, the system saying Gary doesn't have enough work to do this week, he's only got enough work to generate this much revenue, then I've got to, as a manager, I got to get on that and figure out how I get some more work to Gary this week. No law firm does that now.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
So it's exciting stuff if you're into the business side of it, but it's going to put a lot of pressure.
Yeah,
Going to put a lot of pressure on
that's
them. Yeah. So what are we talking about? Updated KPIs. So your KPIs, I think we've kind of interwoven that discussion here, but those
hmm
are all going to probably have to change. You're going to need either you're going to need a data analytics system. Some people are trying to use BI for that. We use BI for that, but again, the closer you can get your data analytics to work with the data, like for example with lien law, if you had analytics that were working directly with lien law and there wasn't well, I got to export it and then I got to import it, and there weren't steps like that, and those can all be automated. Those are going to be more valuable. Now of course you got to get, if we're going to stay on time and billing, for example, for the data analytics to have real time value, people have to put their time in real time. Otherwise, you're missing a key component of it. So again, just a whole, you could look at it like, wow, this is going to be revolutionary in law firms, or you can look at it like this is now law firms catching up with the rest of the business world. Okay.
yeah.
Because their pricing model is going to change, in my opinion. So
Hmm.
so that's going to be the event. Okay. And then we'll see how well they compete. And I just think, again, these key in-house roles, the things that the roles that make law firms go today are there for a reason, and they're all conditioned upon a certain way of doing business. If that pricing model, for example, and that cost structure changes dramatically, these roles are going to change. And I'm not saying everybody's going to get fired, no new people are going to get hired. I'm just saying that workforce development gets really important. It's like, hey, we got to evolve our workforce to think differently about what we do here.
Hmm.
And that's going to be, now let's talk about more some nitty gritty. Okay. Let's get into a little bit of that. So get back down here into the real world. In the real world, most law firms typically do this. About 50% of their fee income goes to payroll and related. Okay. So about half the fees go there. All right. Then you've got, facilities, around say 5 to 7%. It's been all over the place since the pandemic. It's some people have really flattened it out, some people have not. Tools, that's all the stuff you use to practice with. They were kind of in the same. They used to be half of this, but IT is getting expensive now, and this is primarily IT, and you can see kind of what's happening there. And then we've got marketing, marketing's subjective. We have firms that spend 10%. We have firms that spend nothing, essentially.
Hmm.
So, but it's usually 2 to 4%. And then, workforce development, you'll see, is that non-existent kind of a thing. What they define as workforce development, the typical law firm, is you do some CLE and then G&A. Okay. What I think is going to happen in the Gen AI world is payroll is going to come down to, less than, probably going to come down into the 30s, but certainly less than the 40s. And then IT is going to go up, tools is going to go up exponentially, because anybody who's using AI right now, whether they're using Copilot or Gemini or one of the other ones, you are using something that is heavily subsidized. That if they were to actually charge you what it costs to provide that compute to you, you couldn't afford it. But they need you using it right now because they need your information, and they know that if they charged you if they charged you what the real cost of that compute was, you would never touch it. So, but it's going to come over time. I mean, ChatGPT used to be free, and I think the enterprise version now is like $2,000 a month. So, you know, it's
Right.
it's going to
Right.
come. They're spending
Yeah,
billions
it's
on
going
it.
to be, yeah, when your chat GPT is not $20 a month anymore, but
Yeah,
five
yeah,
times or 10 times that, you're going to have
yeah.
some different decisions to make about how you use it.
Yeah, and it's not going to just be, oh, where do you guys want to go for lunch? And then, maybe you get some vendor sponsored stuff, but there's going to be a lot of change here. But the
Yeah.
fundamentally speaking,
Hmm.
all I want you to take away from this is more directionally than absolute. Directionally, this cost structure is going to change, and the challenge for law firms is, and Gary will probably appreciate this because you started a company. The investment they're going to have to make in AI is in the long run going to be offset by a reduction in labor cost, except that they're simultaneous for a while. So you're going to have high labor, high technology spend, and law firms notoriously undercapitalized. So,
Mm.
they just don't carry the cash flow to do this kind of thing. And so, I don't want to get too far into it because I don't have a limited amount of time, but this whole thing is a whole discussion about actually how a law firm is actually going to be able to do this. How are we doing on time? I don't want to. I
We're
don't want to
we're good.
overstay.
We've got another 20 minutes, so
Perfect. Perfect.
keep
So
going.
just know that this is going to be a tremendous problem for the small to mid-sized law firm, and maybe even the larger ones, because they're going to have to raise capital, and that's
Hmm.
like blasphemy. And somebody, they don't like hearing that. You know what I mean? All right. So what are we going to do to get ready for generative AI? Um, we're going to optimize our operations. So we want to start to
So
integrate.
can I stop you there and
Yeah,
just kind of ask you about that last slide? I wanted, it's like the bar on the generative AI cost just kind of hit me there. So now we're at 6 or 8%, and that's going to go to 20 to 30%. Put that in the context of, an average lawyer's overhead. So right
well,
now
let's do
it's,
$10 million in fees, right? So
yeah, okay.
let's say it's going to triple. So let's say
Hmm.
I'm spending, I don't know, 210 grand a year on it. It's going to be 600, 800,
Yeah.
something like that. So
So if I'm a
just think,
lawyer, I'm carrying, 8 or 10,000 a year in tech overhead every year. Now it's going to be 30,
yeah, yeah,
25,
and
30,000. Wow.
yeah, and the
Yeah.
pitch is going to be now a normal business. Like you just take a normal business. Hey, we're gonna that's capitalized with other people's money, for example, right? So I'm a
Right.
publicly traded company, and I say, look, we have to go through a major redo on our operations, and we're going to have to invest. Let's just say it's a small thing like $10 million, and then we'll get our return back over a 5-year period, but we got to put 10 million bucks out today. So we raise some capital and we do it.
Yeah.
What if you go to a law firm and say, look, you have to put out, I don't know, $500,000 today for a return 2 years from now? It's a non-starter in a lot of law firms, except
Right.
like if they're starting the firm or something and they're borrowing. But if they're going to try to do all this with debt, which is what law firms
Right.
tend to like to
S-
do, that's going to get really tricky.
So, so are we talking mostly like, you know, non-billable staff costs that you're offsetting against
Just the
AI? You
that,
know,
the AI fees,
so
the
now
security
we're gonna
costs.
say our your attorney to secretary ratio is going to go from 3 to 1 to 6 to 1 because of this AI investment.
Right. But in the
Uh,
meantime, it's going to be 6 to 1, and you're going to be spending a lot on AI because it won't be
right,
perfect. So you're going to be
right,
efficient for a year or two, right? So, because if you stop
yeah,
and think about
because
it,
your people have to learn how to use it in a way
and you got
that's
to,
actually effective. Yeah.
you
Wow.
got to protect it,
Okay.
but,
So
but
I
even
didn't,
simpler,
yeah, I
what if
didn't
I,
mean to derail you there, but I
no,
wanted
I
to
mean,
put
you're going
this
to,
in context. That's pretty huge.
yeah, think of
The
it this
change
way.
that we're talking about. Yeah.
Let's say you're using co-counsel in the Westlaw product, right? And let's say Westlaw says, all right, we've been giving it away for $3 grand a month, and now it really needs to be $9 grand a month, and so you're
Hmm.
sitting there going, okay, I don't have to, I don't have to spend a lot of money, but all of a sudden now I got $6 grand a month more, and I'm not, and they'll have that kind of market power eventually. So,
Right.
again, you just got to pay attention to this,
Got it.
all right. So,
Wow.
yeah, it's a lot to think about. I mean, you could end the presentation right there and say, go figure this. Go tell your partners we're going to be raising capital. Let's start stocking away a couple of $100 grand a year to capitalize our law firm because we're going to need it in 2 or 3 years from now. That's
Mm,
that's that's after tax money. They generally don't like doing that. So
exactly.
um, so so all right. So we have you know, optimized operations. Right now, what you can be doing is starting to do your research on task oriented processes and workflows and start reimagining or rethinking about the way work is getting done and, and start moving your firm in that direction. Maybe you get a project manager, maybe push your case management app, maybe evaluate your case management app. You need a significantly larger, it's like in the movie Jaws, you're going to need a bigger boat. You're going to need a significantly larger technology budget. And this is at a time where the companies, any company, bank, insurance company, publicly traded company, regulated company is putting so much pressure on their law firms with so many security requirements that just the cybersecurity cost. When you look at the average technology spend, and this is going to be difficult because when you look at the average technology spend in the law firm, of that 7% or 10% that they're spending, like 80% of it is just going for cybersecurity rather than better machines, better software,
Right.
better apps. So much of that budget is being poured into security that it doesn't feel like you're doing any better because all you're doing is spending on, it's kind of like you're spending on, police force and not dealing with the crime, right? So it's like,
Right. Well, there's nothing there that's increasing your productivity. So
right,
it's
getting
just more
nothing for it.
spend. Yeah.
Yeah, and so and there is a so anyway, you're gonna need a significantly larger, and
Mm,
eventually I think it's going to overtake payroll to some
mm,
extent.
wow. Hmm.
Theoretically, it should. Okay. Um, staff and strategic staff, shift in strategic emphasis to a very different, adaptation of these new skills and roles. I mean, you got to start to, again, going back to the books, right? You got to start talking to the partners, to the extent that there are people on the call that are in management positions and have to talk about this kind of thing with partners. It's a really good idea to start getting them to understand this information now. So it just shifts the way they start thinking about it. Because so much of it, I just got off the phone with a managing partner this morning, and he was a little argumentative about. I think it's going to be longer than you think it's going to be, and I'm like, well, I hope you're right, but I don't think it is. I think so you're gonna meet. It's natural. You're going to meet that in your law firm because everybody's got a different way that they assimilate change. So we need to stop.
Right.
Text.
Well, and
Go ahead.
what's,
Okay.
well, I was just going to say, just taking this out of the legal context for a minute. If we look at my company, if we have a content writer in our marketing group, they can now produce multiples of the amount of content that they used to be able to produce. So somebody in the engineering department can produce multiples of the amount of code they used to produce. But none of that has moved to the bottom line in any way. So, you know, it that really hasn't been figured out in with AI anywhere. How, you know,
I
yes,
don't know
it's
what your
there's
experience with it is. I use a lot of AI in because I'm
I
driving.
use AI all the time.
I just
And
find myself going longer and deeper into stuff that I would have just, said, okay, I'm gonna spend a couple hours, but then it gets interesting and I keep drilling and drilling and drilling and realize I've actually spent more time, not less time. Gotta get it right.
well, it definitely helps me get a project done faster. But,
Yeah. Yeah.
then how does that flow through the business to really make a difference on the bottom line? I mean, seems to me to be the ultimate question with AI
Well,
overall, and very much so with law firms, because, you know, more words does not necessarily mean more revenue.
right. Actually, it's counter for them right now. They actually
Yeah,
hate it. So yeah, no, it's again, I think that's probably true for everybody. Like it hasn't hit the bottom line yet. I mean, we feel right, feels like we're doing it. You know what I
right.
mean? But I haven't seen I haven't seen this like growth in my company, for example, since I've been using it.
Yeah,
From that, you know,
exactly.
haven't come out with a brand new app that was so killer, that everybody's buying it. I mean, however you monetize. All right, so you wanna think about integrated case management. The only thing I would tell you about your case management system, take a real good look at the company you're buying the case management from, and do your research and see how they're capitalized and how they're fixed, because they're going to have to make major capital investments too. And so, take a real good look at what that is, and how you're going to use that, and think about like some of the things we've been talking about today, and whether or not that's going to be able to evolve. Marketing automation software, again, I'm big. We're a HubSpot user, not to shamelessly plug people. We don't get anything for it, but you can use any of them. But
Hmm.
and those are all going to be sort of portable, if you ask me. And so, but get on with owning, sort of making it intellectual property, and placing a stronger emphasis on brand, because the truth of the matter is going to be, yeah, they're going to be always great lawyers and rock stars and things like that. But if you start trying to improve the outliers, you're just wasting your time. What you really need to do is improve the average, and this is where this will help. If you
Hmm.
can move your average result up rather than getting a little more out of your top producers, you're going to get way more impact from that.
Hmm.
Um, Updated financial management systems, again, can they handle task and deliverable focused billing, for example? Can they give you some good analytics, or work with some kind of analytics tool near seamlessly that gives you what you need? Generative AI tools, advanced data stores. The biggest problem that all of us are going to have with AI is, right now the average law firm has all their data siloed. A little something in a case management app. We got some stuff on OneDrive. Oh, we got this stuff over here on ShareFile. Oh, we got this stuff in Outlook. Oh, we got this stuff over here in this case file. And so by the time you like count up all the different silos of data that so we're going to have advanced data stores where you have your data in one place. Because one of the things about AI that's pretty obvious to me, the company with the most data and the best data is going to have a huge advantage, right?
Hmm.
So, because we're all going to have the average data, okay? We're all going to have the the known stuff. But like, for example, Reddit is trying to sell its data to Google, for example, because they got years and years and years and years and years of incredible data. Agent development. Agents are going to be really important. And basically, what agents are going to be are, for what people understand, is that you're, instead of going and building a spreadsheet, it's going to say, I see that table over there. What do you want to do with it? You say, well, I want you to create an income statement for me, or I want you to create a budget for me for next year. I want you to,
Hmm.
create a what if analysis, or whatever, however you want to purpose it. And these agents are going to be these plain language people, that are bots really, but they're advanced. And you're just telling them in just plain English what it is you want them to do. So, you know, you won't think of it in terms of like spreadsheets and learning how do I sum columns in Excel and all those different, if you ever, anybody here uses Excel, there's a billion formulas and different ways you can use it. You don't have to know any of that anymore. You're just going to have to tell it what you want it to do. And then, of course, there's Copilot and Gemini and lots of vendor specific type stuff. But
Yeah.
a lot of times the vendor
Just,
specifics. Go ahead.
oh, I just want to give a little plug for our next webinar in 2 weeks. We're with Dennis Garcia from the Microsoft legal department, talking about Copilot.
Yeah.
He's
That's
sort of one of the chief guinea pigs there. And Copilot's interesting because most every law firm is in Microsoft, and Copilot is embedded in Microsoft apps so that it has the potential to use your Microsoft data to train on securely. And it also has also will do things. It will draft emails and draft documents and spreadsheets and other things. So
Yeah.
it's if you're using Chat GPT, which just spits out text, it's another generation. So I
Yeah. And
think
you
that's really
will,
interesting to see how that's going to
yeah, and
work.
you'll learn this from him. But Copilot is really just Chat GPT that has been configured to work in the Microsoft ecosystem. They're both open AI, and
Right.
Microsoft has a huge investment in open AI. But um, I use actually Copilot, Gemini, and a couple of others. And when I'm in the Microsoft ecosystem, Copilot is really good. I mean,
Yeah.
it is really good. Vendor specific type stuff, they're going to be that, and you just have to really understand what you're getting there. Okay. Because everybody's now putting the AI enabled tag on there, which is nothing more than a link to like Chat GPT or something. But
Right.
okay, some workforce doing on time, Gary. How are we?
We got about 7 minutes.
Yeah, I can knock this out. So workforce adjustments and operational KPIs. So shifting more work to non-lawyers. I think you're definitely going to see that. I think you will see case counts per lawyer increasing, depending on the kind of cases you use, because while you may have less to do in those cases, you're going to have more cases to do. Because remember, the other side of the coin is if you're on the defense side, the plaintiff guys have figured this out too, and they're filing more lawsuits. And so what is happening is claims, for example, in the insurance defense space are actually increasing because it's easier to file claims now. More client vendor influence on case management. So they may actually give you templates. They may actually have you sign on to a platform of theirs where it's another data silo, and that's how they might get around the confidentiality by making you effectively do their work on their servers. So interesting kind
Interesting.
of ethical dilemmas, but new KPIs to measure real productivity. So again, all the KPIs have to be updated, and really the KPIs in law firms are billable hours and realization, right? So
Hmm.
those are going to get more sophisticated, and we're going to need people to do that, and our workforce is going to have to know how to do that. Operating model adjustments. So more distributed workforce. That's all coming. That's all here, but it's even going to be more distributed. Processing centers potentially, maybe more offshoring of client and vendor supplied work. These are kind of concepts that are kind of here now. Um, it's just that the more you enable it, and then the more it's going to be. Probability and statistics playing a much larger role in case defense. I mean, I read an article the other day, which is fascinating. There's a company that's building a thing that from first notice of loss, they take the first notice of loss, they put it through the algorithm, and the algorithm says, given this jurisdiction, given these facts set, given this judge, given this, send it to this law firm and tell them this case needs to land somewhere between X and Y. So, I mean,
Wow.
that's sort of the world we're heading into,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, I
It's
think AI would be very good at that with the right data set.
yeah, yeah, it's the key, which might be
Yeah.
why they want you on their platform, right? If you're on their
Yeah.
platform, doing their work on their
They get
platform,
the data. They're,
they get
yep.
there, and that's what this is all going to be about. We're all going to have the same. We're all going to have the same tools, basically. Okay, it's going to be about who's got access to the best data, and
Mm.
I think that's where it's going to happen. So new roles for a different day, and you can go through these. I won't go through all of these, but these just give everybody. And I trust everybody has this presentation, or you'll send it to them, Gary. But
Yep. Yep.
these are things you're likely, different positions
Yeah.
you're likely to go ahead.
If make sure that you send me your PowerPoint afterwards,
Yeah,
so
you bet.
I will, and we'll deliver it to everybody.
Yeah, because these are kind of just lists on what types of positions you might hire, or need,
Hmm.
or want to talk to your management about. So real quick on pricing, certainly not last for, but how you price in this new world. So flat fee is definitely going to become more popular, more of that. deliverable based pricing, in other words, and task level pricing, kind of the same thing. Tasks tend to be parts of deliverables. So, but, you know, the thing is a little bit scary to some law firms and a little bit scary to me is you think when you go to the doctor, there's a little bit of precedent for all of this, right? Everything has got a code and everything is billed at a certain price, regardless of how long they take. And so I don't see how we don't do some of that,
Hmm.
especially if we say this case on 95% of the time is going to land between X and Y. And this is between 95% of the time how much effort it takes to get. And so we should be able to price like that.
Yeah.
Maybe you have hybrid, which is task or deliverable based billing, but then hourly for trial work because that's so unpredictable, as a hybrid. And then maybe if you beat the algo, Gary, this case, you should bring this case in for $50,000. You brought it in for 40, you get a little something for that, so if you
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
the
Hmm.
algo. Again, some of this stuff
It's
is
Yeah, this works really well when you've got a routine, something that happens over and over again very, very commonly, which never happened in my practice. But if you're talking the defense world or, plaintiff's world, I think I definitely see that heading in this way.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, and you stop and think about how you would use AI for pricing. AI for pricing and where you're trying to it's so inelastic, right?
Hmm.
So because there are a lot of people doing it, there's a lot of volume. At some point, I got enough data now. If I've got this one really unique lawsuit and I go to Gary because Gary has a really unique skill and he's the only person who can probably win this lawsuit for me, we're not even talking about any of this, right? We're
Right.
just talking
Yeah,
about,
exactly.
you know what I mean?
Right.
It's so,
Yeah.
so but use AI differently. And then so
Yeah.
disruptions and opportunities, obviously in office space, bill review and time accounting, definitely some things there. Client dictated matter plans. I think you're going to have like an app store, and the clients are going to say these are the
Mm.
matter plans we want you to use for these matters, and they're going to push back big time on that because they're going to say you can't tell me how to practice law.
Right. Hmm.
Redefine hiring focus, real time reporting. Maybe even client side reporting to them.
Hmm.
Long cycle AR and WIP should go away. Okay, because if we're doing task based type stuff, if I do the thing, you should pay me the money. Um, Tech procedure and focus in law school have been totally not ready for this. Um,
Totally not. Yes.
Probability and statistics and case management, and then all this creation of all these new positions. So
Right.
that's what I
Right.
got.
Wow.
Um, you
Wow.
know,
That is a brave new world you're talking about there, Brian.
it's exciting to me. I don't know,
Yeah.
but this
Yes.
is what
I
I
mean,
tell people. It's
it,
terrifying at night and exciting in the day. You know.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, well, thank you so much for joining us. I did not see any questions in the chat
Good.
or anywhere, but that was really interesting. It's like, boy, there's just stuff to chew on every piece of that. So, everyone, hang on to your hats. We're headed for a brave new world. Thank, thanks for
Indeed.
joining us today, and thank you, Brian. And we are adjourned.
All right, Gary. See you soon, man.
Bye, everyone.